director of a women's campus here at Akua Mind and Body. Today I'm going to be talking about 5 things you don't say to someone that is depressed. The first one is someone saying, at least. So anytime you start a sentence that says at least, that means you're not being very empathetic with someone in their depression. So for instance, if someone's saying, I'm really sad because I just broke up with my boyfriend, or I just broke up with my husband. Someone could feel really depressed in that time because they're feeling rejected. And for someone to say, well, at least you're not someone that's in Africa and starving, or at least you're not homeless, or at least you have a roof over your head, or at least anything. You're really minimizing their feelings, and by minimizing their feelings, then you're teaching them to minimize their feelings. And when people minimize their feelings, then what happens is that they push it down, and then it comes back out in other ways, whether it be drug addiction, sex addiction, any type of addiction. It can come out in shame, it can come out in depression, anxiety. So that's important to recognize, is when you are minimizing someone's feeling. The second one is you have so much to be grateful for. So that comment doesn't sound like it would be a bad comment, because it's true. There's a lot of things that we all have something to be grateful for. And it is true that being grateful helps people with depression. It is true that we work with our clients to find things that they're grateful for, because by finding out what they're grateful for, it will help them really trying to change their cognitive perspective on things from being so dismal and despair to maybe being a little bit more hopeful and grateful. However, if someone's talking to you about how they're feeling depressed and you say, well, you have so much to be grateful for, you're almost dismissing the feeling in that moment. Because in that moment, they're not feeling grateful. In that moment, they're feeling, whether it be lonely, whether it be sad, whether it be heartbreak, whether it be grief, whatever the feeling is that they're feeling, you want to acknowledge that feeling rather than trying to get them out of that feeling. And then number 3 is, have you prayed about it? So like I said about number 2, that's not a bad thing to say. A lot of people, studies show that people are less depressed if they are spiritual and have faith in something. And so having faith is a very strong thing to be resilient to a lot of the pain that happens in life. However, if you're responding to someone in a moment where they're talking about how sad they are, or rejected, or lonely, or like I was saying before, all those feelings that go along with depression, and you go and say, have you prayed about it? Then you're over-spiritualizing the issue. And what I mean by over-spiritualizing, that means that you're making it seem like all you need to do is pray, and if you pray about it, then that means that you're going to feel better. And so I know a lot of clients come through here and they have tried praying. They have tried to pray for their depression to go away, and yet they're still depressed. And so then they feel even more hopeless because people are saying, just pray about it. And then they think there's something wrong with themselves because they're praying and it's still not working. So then they must not be faithful enough. It is important to find faith in something. But in that moment, it is not smart to over-spiritualize something with someone that's feeling depressed. And so number 4, another thing that you need to stay clear from is saying, if you didn't use drugs or drink alcohol, then you wouldn't be so depressed. So that might be true. It might be true that someone will not be as depressed if they're drinking, or if they're using drugs, or if they're doing things that go against their values, they wouldn't feel so depressed. However, that's going to seem like blame. Like you're only depressed because of the actions that you're doing. And in reality, a lot of the actions and behavior that they're doing that's against their values is actually because they're depressed. A lot of the times they're feeling depressed, and those feelings of loneliness and hopelessness and helplessness, they are trying to mask those feelings with the behaviors that are against their values. So for instance, using drugs. That is, they do that in order to not feel the helplessness, not to feel the loneliness, not to feel the depression. And so then they do it, and then they shame themselves because it's against their values, and then they feel more depressed. So it's a vicious cycle, right? And so number 5, the other saying you want to stay away from is, you should blank. And so, like I said in the beginning, at least blank about anything, that's the same thing for number 5 with you should. And so if you say you should and follow it with anything, you should get a hobby, you should get a job, you should go running, you should exercise more, you should pray more, you should go to church, whatever that is, that is criticizing someone and shaming someone without trying. I know that you're trying to help, and like I said before, a lot of these are all, you're just trying to help. You're trying to get someone out of their depression, but what you're not realizing is you're actually fueling the depression and causing them to feel more depressed. And so, like I said, those things are all really good things. Getting a job would probably help someone in their depression. Someone going and getting a hobby would probably help someone with their depression. All those things are very helpful, but at the same time, someone who's feeling depressed doesn't want to do those things. They don't feel like it's going to be helpful because when they go to those places, their perception of themselves is so debilitating that when they're out, they're not experiencing it the way that you experience it. You may be saying, okay, well, those are all the things I usually say to someone to try to help them. And you don't really know what to say to someone that's feeling depressed. So here are some of the things that I suggest that you say to someone while someone's depressed. And so number 1 is, I'm here for you. It's as simple as that. All you need to do is just sit with someone and say, I'm here for you. And maybe you don't understand what they're going through, and that's okay to say. You don't have to say I understand, because maybe you don't. And that goes to my number 2, is saying, you know what, I don't understand what you're going through, but I'd really like to try. I'd really like to try to understand what you're going through. Help me better understand. Number 3, acknowledging that depression is real. So a lot of the time, people who are depressed feel like they're crazy, and they feel like other people think they're crazy. And so acknowledging that depression is real, that it is something that is separate from them, it's not who they are, and that it's a condition, and that depression is real, will validate someone in their experience. Number 4, we will get through this together. That's showing that you're there for them, that you're not going anywhere, that the depression doesn't scare you, and that you can sit with them, and that you can tolerate those feelings of helplessness and hopelessness and feeling stuck without wanting to get them out of it and not wanting to get out of it yourself, that you can tolerate it. It's not scary for you. And then number 5 is, I care about you. Just saying, I know that all the things that 1 through 5 of the don'ts is people trying to care, but they don't realize it's as simple as just saying what you're trying to do is that I care for you. And thank you so much.